Hello everyone, this is Sinema77, horror and cult film lover. I'm back with another video. We're going to do another movie review, but before I get to that, I mentioned this in my last video and I just wanted to give a quick mention again. There's somebody that I met on Facebook, we're Facebook friends, and um, I honestly, she's gorgeous, she's beautiful, sexy. If you like girls that are, you like vampire girls, sexy vampire girls, girls with tattoos, then honestly, there's this girl here. Like I said, I know, big budget show. Chrissy Krueger. Okay. So yeah, and she has like all kinds of pictures. You're gonna love her. Okay. If you love the stuff that I do, go on there, check her out. She's got all kinds of galleries of pictures and everything else. And she's just drop dead gorgeous and you know, super easy on the eyes. I promise. You go and check out her pictures on Facebook and stuff. You won't be disappointed. Okay. She has all kinds of different stuff and say hi. Just, be nice, but say hi to her. She'll say hi back. So yeah, so I just thought I'd mention that real quick. Anyway, now on to the review. Okay, for today's movie, we're going to be reviewing Kevin Smith's movie Yoga Hosers. Okay, this movie came out in 2016 and it stars his daughter Harley Quinn Smith, Johnny Depp's daughter Lily Rose Depp. Kevin Smith is in this movie as well, and so is Johnny Depp. So fathers and daughters working together. Um, let's see here. Yeah, time to start talking about this movie. So anyway, here's a picture of Harley Quinn Smith. I thought you might like to look at. Where to begin with this movie? This movie is definitely has gotten a lot of bad reviews. It's definitely got ripped apart by many critics and stuff, and I could kind of see why. And before I get started, I'm going to tell you like this hurts me to do this because I love Kevin Smith's movies. I'm a Kevin Smith fan. I want to love and support every single thing he does. I love his comedies. I love the fact that he's working in horror films as well. And I mean, he's got other movies coming too that I can't wait to see. He's got the new Jay and Silent Bob movie that's going to be coming out. I was like, this movie. The thing about Yoga Hosers is that it's the second part in a trilogy that Kevin Smith is doing. He's calling it basically, I think it's called the Great White North trilogy. And the first movie was Tusk, which I love that movie. I think that movie's fantastic. I'll review that movie one day too. But Tusk was the first movie. This was the second one, and then I believe there's supposed to be a third movie called Moose Jaws, and that's supposed to be coming up pretty soon too. Now, here's a picture of Lily Rose Depp, Johnny Depp's daughter, and so anyway, basically the story is pretty simple. It's kind of it, the best way to describe it. It's a comedy, it's a horror film, and it's kind of a chick flick. And what I mean by chick flick, not so much like it's a romantic love story or anything like that. It's more about a movie about young girls being empowered and you got okay. The movie starts off. You got your two girls. They're both called the Colleen's, and basically you're just your typical kind of high school girls. They have their certain interests. We find out at the beginning of the music. I'm getting to that at the beginning of the movie that they have a band and their band is called Glamthrax and that they love music and they love to play and everything else. And they got their drummer, whose name is Ichabod, but like they nickname him Dickabod and all that kind of stuff. And then we realize that they're the convenience store clerks from the movie Tusk. Now in the movie Tusk, they had just a couple of very small scenes. They didn't have much, in the way of acting. Here, basically, they're the stars of the show. And one thing you're going to notice if you've seen the movie Tusk, this movie Yoga Hosers pretty much has about the same entire cast from Tusk for the most part. But the thing is like a lot of the actors are playing different roles. Like for example, Justin Long, who played he was pretty much the main character in Tusk who gets turned into the walrus. in this movie, he plays a smaller part. He plays the girl's yoga instructor. His name's Yogi Berra, and uh, let's see here, like Haley Joel Osment, who had a bigger part to play in Tusk. Basically, he really has not even barely more than a cameo in this movie. And the same thing with Genesis Rodriguez, who played the female lead in Tusk. She's only, she's got a very tiny part as a gym teacher in this movie. So you're going to realize like the majority of the actors in the movie are, the stars from the movie Tusk, and they're all in this movie too. So the only girls or the only actors that really kind of keep their parts is Lily Rose Depp and Harley Quinn Smith and Johnny Depp. Johnny Depp returns playing the detective Guy Lapointe, the character that he played in Tusk. And now basically the story is the two girls, they're running the convenience store and everything else, and at the same time they're going to school, and they're just your typical teenage girls. They like music, they like boys, they love their phones, they love hanging out together, spending time, just being girls and stuff like that. Well, at the beginning of the movie, they get invited to they get invited to a party, a senior party, by these two guys. One of the guys they think is kind of gross, and they don't really like him very much. But the one boy, Harley Quinn Smith, she's really like keen on him. She wants to hook up with him and stuff like that. So he ends up, he invites them to a senior party, and they're happy about that. And then they go and see her mom, which is Jen Schwalbach, who's Kevin Smith's wife and Harley Quinn Smith's real life mother, and in the movie. And so she's basically kind of reprising her same role as the waitress in the Slider um, fast food joint that she was in Tusk and everything else. And so, they're talking and everything else. And she's, talking about like, she gives her a switchblade knife and tells her, like these guys, if, they get fresh, they get stabbed and everything else. And so, so the girls, they're going to school, and there's something else that's going on here too. Now, the thing that else also is going on here is that while the girls are going to school and they're working their job at the A to Z, now some strange things are going on. And they end up being visited by the detective Guy Lapointe, Johnny Depp's character. And he's explained to them that, like, there's some very strange things going on. And at one point, there's a man who goes into the A to Z, and, turns out, like, him and the girls don't exactly get along in the very best way, but Johnny Depp is like, yeah, I found out that like he knows you girls because he goes and shops at the store, but this guy's been found dead, and it turns out something entered into his anus and basically broke his neck, and whatever it was, it seemed like it came out of his mouth and things like that. And the girls are, they don't really know anything, but they're going to school, and they're in their classroom now. Vanessa Paradis, sorry if I butcher the name, but anyway, she's Lily Rose Depp's real life mother, and she was Johnny Depp's girlfriend for many, many years. She tells him the story that at one time, the city of Quebec had Nazis in it, and the Nazis. The main Nazi is actually played by Haley Joel Osment, who he had a huge part in, Tusk, but in this movie, same thing, like a lot of the other actors from Tusk, he had a big part in that movie, but in this movie, he has barely more than a cameo in this movie. And if I can go on a tangent just for a second, please forgive me for this, but the one thing I ever noticed though is like when it comes to Haley Joel Osment anymore, it seems like all people want to do is just talk about how fat he is. They don't talk about, like, well, he was a really good child actor, but he's just as good as an adult actor, or he's even better, or he's not as good as he was when he was a kid. Nobody ever talks about his ability as an actor anymore. All everybody talks about is, oh my God, he's fat. And it's like, it seems like that's the only thing anybody ever seems to notice about him is he's fat. I don't know why. That just kind of bugs me. It's all like, well, is he a good actor anymore? Nobody ever says, because all they do is talk about how fat he is. Whatever. But anyway, though, going back to the movie. So it turns out that he wants to bring Nazis to Quebec, Canada, and one of his soldiers is actually James Park, the son of the late great Michael Parks, who we all remember from James Park. We remember him as OB in The Hateful Eight. He plays Earl McGraw's son in many of the Tarantino movies like Death Proof and Kill Bill and so many other things. So, and for a second there, okay, Michael Parks actually was supposed to have a part in this movie too, but unfortunately, by the time they got ready to make this movie, he became very, very ill and he got sick and he passed away, unfortunately. And ultimately, the he was going to play the role of this evil scientist, and I'll get to that in just a minute. But this evil scientist was going to help bring kind of Nazis to Germany in a roundabout way, and I'll get to that. But so anyway, so there's kind of this other thing going on. So you have this kind of monster movie, and then you have this kind of other thing going on where okay, so the girls they're they end up getting screwed and they have to work, and stuff because Lily Rose Depp, her character, her dad basically runs the store and he's having this affair with Natasha Lyon, who, we all remember pretty much. People would say, "Oh, I remember her from American Pie." I think most people nowadays would remember her from Scary Movie 2, where she the Exorcist bit at the beginning of Scary Movie 2. But so anyway, she kind of screws the girls over, and that they end up having to work and everything. And so these two guys call, and the two guys that invited the girls to the party, they're all like, "Hey, you girls, you coming to the party? What's the story? What's going on?" And so they're all like, "Well, we can't go to the party." And they're all like, "Hey, what if we invite the party over here?" So they're like, "Yeah, let's have the party over here." And the guy's like, "Okay, yeah, we'll be over there in a minute." And then we come to find out that they have a more nefarious plan for these girls. We find out that the two guys are actually Satan worshiping serial killers, and their plan was actually that they just want to end up luring the girls and killing them. So the two guys, they go to the store and they're talking with the girls, and the girls at first are a little put off. They're all like, "Well, where's the party?" and all this kind of stuff. And he's, the one guy that Harley Quinn Smith is, got a thing for. He's pretty much a smooth talker, and he's saying, "Why would I want to be there with all these people when I could spend my time with you and everything else?" And so they kind of separate, and she's giving him a tour of the convenience store and everything else, and then he explains to her. He basically tells her, "I'm a serial killer," and he's all like, I'm going to cut you open to get at your soul and everything else." And just as he's, at first she's kind of like, "Wait, please don't do this. Can't we talk about this and everything?" And just as he's about to kill her, she pulls out the knife and she, aims at his nuts, and she tells him, like, "If you try to do this, I'm going to cut your balls off," that kind of thing. And what ends up happening is all of a sudden the guy is attacked by something, and he's all like, it's in my butt and everything else. And so Harley Quinn Smith, she's like, "Well, what is it, what are you talking about?" and all this other kind of stuff. And ultimately what ends up happening is this he falls down, and then like his head cocks back and you see his neck breaking and everything else. And then this monster comes out, and the monster is right here. The monster is right here on the cover. I don't know if you can see that or not. Right there, where my finger's pointing. And the monster is called a Bratzi. Now, a Bratzi is basically a German monster that's basically made out of bratwurst and sauerkraut. And I'll get to that in just a minute. But anyway, though, going back to it. So they, Harley Quinn Smith, she finds out that these things are there, and she's like screaming for Lily Rose Depp here to help her, and Lily Rose Depp, she's almost about, because the guy is standing behind her, he's pulling out like a hammer to bash her head in with it, and he turns around, one of these broads he gets in his butt and everything else, and she turns around, she's like, "Stop doing that," and all this stuff, and then they realize like the store is infested with these Bratzies, and so they're talking about they're scared, they don't know what to do. Harley Quinn Smith even repeats one of Kevin Smith's most famous lines, "I'm not even supposed to be here today," and all this kind of stuff. And so what they end up doing is, they end up saying, "Well, we're going to fight these things, but we're going to use our yoga skills to do it." So they end up, doing, their yoga moves and everything else, and they're able to take out the broadsheets and stuff like that. And they're trying to get out of the store. They get, taken in by the cops, and basically they're arrested for the murder of the two guys. And so they're sitting in the station where all of a sudden Jay Muse shows up, and unfortunately, that's one of the complaints I have about this movie is, you got Jay Muse and basically you give him nothing to do. He's in the movie for maybe just like, not even a minute, but he's there, and he sneaks in Johnny Depp, and Johnny Depp goes in there and he's talking to them, and the girls are explaining like, we can get you evidence and everything else, but what we need you to do is we need you to get us out of here, and we need you to get us back to, the convenience store and everything else so we can find the evidence that we need, and all this other kind of stuff. And so he's reluctant, but he agrees to take him back there. So they go back to the store and everything else. And, at first the girls are talking about, well, we really have no evidence to show him and all this stuff. And so he's like, you girls are really testing my patience here and all this other kind of stuff. And then the girls basically, they get abducted by the Bratzies and everything else. And then Johnny Depp, he goes looking for them, and he ends up becoming abducted too. Okay, so then we find out that our two female heroes here, they're taken into an underground lair, and we realize that, this mad scientist that originally was supposed to be played by Michael Parks is now played by Ralph Garman, who is a friend of Kevin Smith's. He's been in a number of Kevin Smith's movies and stuff, and they do a podcast together. And he's also a well-known voice actor. He does work on Family Guy and other shows and stuff too. Works with Seth MacFarlane a lot and stuff. And he basically explains that, like he created these Bratzi monsters and stuff like that, and that, that they're going to end up, taking over Quebec, Canada, and all this other kind of stuff. And so the thing is, though, is like Ralph Garman was pretty much, you come to find out, like Ralph Garman was mainly chosen for this role after Michael Parks became ill. He was chosen because, Ralph Garman is good at voice imitations, and he's doing all these imitations. He's talking about, oh, I sound like scary German, and I'm going to. Sorry, my German is quite a bit off, but so he's talking about like, I'm going to talk to you in a way that won't seem as threatening and stuff. So he's doing like an Al Pacino impression. He's doing like a Sylvester Stallone impression. At one point, he's talking about, I'm going to talk to you like Batman. And so he starts talking like Adam West, and the girls here, they're like, that's not how Batman talks. Batman's like, where's the trigger? Where's the trigger? And all this stuff. And so he's explaining like what's going on and everything else, and that, that he was incubated for all these years and stuff like that. And they were released one night during a power outage, and that they're going to go ahead and they're going to take over Quebec, Canada, and they're going to, rule the world and all this other kind of stuff. And then he unleashes this creature, which honestly, I almost thought it would have been a great idea had it not been for one thing. They end up creating this creature. So anyway, so they create this creature, which, really would have been a great idea for a monster, because the monster is actually, it's a creature that was designed using the body parts and the organs and everything else of the victims that they murdered and everything else. But the only problem is that he ends up turning it into a huge Canadian joke. And it had not been for that, it's like this really would have been a great, honestly, great idea for a horror film and stuff like that. And the creature is, put, like I said, it's pieced together out of body parts and organs and stuff like that. But the problem is it's got a huge hockey mask on and a big hockey stick, and it's called the goalie golem and everything else. Had it not been for that, if he hadn't made a big Canadian joke out of it, it really would have been a much better deal. But so anyway, so the girls realize like they need to fight it and everything else. And Ralph Garman is talking about like, well, it needs to, I wanted to kill the critics first. And Johnny Depp was like, well, because he wrote a book about, the events that happened in the movie Tusk. And, he's all like, the book got ripped to shreds by the critics. So he's all like, yeah, you can kill the critics. I'm fine with that. But the girls are like, no, we can't. let that happen. It's like, forget this guy. We're gonna go ahead and we're gonna fight him ourselves, and they do, and kind of like before, they end up using their yoga skills to defeat the Bratzies and take them out and take out this creature, the goalie golem, and the goalie golem is actually ends up killing Ralph Garman's character and stuff. And then basically kind of like everything's saved, and then the two girls become heroes, even though they're still just stuck going to school and working at the convenience store, but pretty much they're still playing music and stuff like that, and it's going to lead into what's supposed to be the third movie in this trilogy called Moose Jaws. But anyway, this movie here, you know, it's not bad, but it's definitely not Kevin Smith's best work. And I got to be honest, it really, really hurts me to say that because I do love Kevin Smith's movies a lot, and it really bugs me to have to say that. But this movie, it seemed like with Tusk, he kind of balanced the humor and the horror better than he does in this movie. And some, like I said, the goalie golem, the creature was a good idea, but then to turn around and make it a big Canadian joke, that really didn't help it. Had it been something else besides that, it would have worked. I think another thing that didn't really help this movie is the fact that it's called Yoga Hosers, to be honest with you, because here's the thing, not everybody has seen, Strange Brew. Not everybody knows a lot about Canadian comedy, and that's kind of the problem. If you haven't seen movies like Strange Brew or maybe stuff like Kids in the Hall or something like that, you're not going to get a lot of the humor in this movie because it's all Canadian jokes and things like that. Um, I mean, I appreciate that it takes place in Canada, but it's just he kind of goes just a little too far of with the Canadian jokes, and you know, and like for instance, it's like, do these girls just like go around telling everybody? I mean, do they just tell everybody that that they're into yoga? Because like for one thing too, that was kind of I thought it was kind of off putting was that every time they keep coming across characters in this movie, the characters keep saying, keep looking at these two girls going, God damn yoga hosers, and stuff. So it's like, it doesn't really make any sense. Do these girls, like everybody that comes into that store, do they tell them we're into yoga? Or do they just go walking down the street and like announce to everybody that they're into yoga? And that's why everybody just keeps calling them yoga hosers all the time. And, it was kind of cool that unfortunately now that he's gone, but the late great Stan Lee has a cameo in here, and even he calls them yoga hosers. So it's kind of like that kind of doesn't make a lot of sense, but ultimately, the thing about this movie though is that I know a lot of people didn't like this movie. A lot of people consider it the worst thing that Kevin Smith's ever done, but at the same time, I really can't hate on this movie too much because it really is. For one thing, it's Kevin Smith stepping out of his comfort zone, and by that I mean the majority of his movies are usually kind of more geared towards a male audience. I mean, you go look at like the Jay and Silent Bob movies and all that other kind of stuff. It's more, you could tell those movies are kind of more intended for a male audience. Even though women can watch them and they can enjoy them, they're not really necessarily geared towards a female audience. Where this movie is geared towards a female audience, it's meant to appeal more to women than it is for men. So it's like that's why a lot of Kevin Smith fans don't like this movie, or they don't consider it his best work because it's not really aimed at them. But ultimately, I don't hate this movie. I don't consider it the worst thing he's ever done. If I had to pick like my worst Kevin Smith movie, I think would have to be Cop Out. That'd be just my opinion, but this is not his best work. Like I said, just this one here, I think because like you go look at Tusk, and like while Tusk was a little weird and it was a little silly, Tusk did have an atmosphere to it, and it did have kind of like an unsettling kind of building of tension and stuff like that. Where this kind of goes a little bit more. This kind of has a bit more of a goofy tone, and there's sight gags in this movie. For instance, one of the biggest ones is Johnny Depp's character right there, where he's got this mole. Like in one shot it'll be on the end of his nose, then the next shot will be on his forehead. They'll be on his chin, or it'll be or then he'll have several of them and stuff. So it's kind of like a little sight gag. Every time you turn around, the mole's either at a different place or there's more of them or whatever else. So it's just I think that's kind of the biggest thing that hurt this movie was that this is meant to be a sequel to Tusk, and while Tusk was while it had humor in it, Tusk was more. It kind of took the subject matter a little more seriously and things like that. Where this And I think also too, it kind of strays away from Tusk in the sense that Tusk was more of a human horror story. Is something that kind of could potentially happen, but in this movie, this has more of a supernatural feel to it, you know, with the creation of the Bratzi monsters and stuff like that, and that's kind of more like out of the realm of normality and things like that. But yeah, I mean, I don't ultimately hate this movie, but it's definitely not his best work. And like I said, I think one of the flaws too is, you know, you got like, you know, Jay Muse who's only in the movie for maybe a minute. You know, you don't give him more to do. Um, um, just yeah, but I mean, I don't hate the movie. It's just I don't really feel it's his best work, and I think also too, just kind of like I hate to say that, but the whole point of putting Ralph Garman in here just because he can do good good voice imitations and things like that, that kind of doesn't help either. Like I think it would have been better if like Michael Parks had played the part. He would have he probably is like he would have done it a little bit more. He would have made it a little bit more believable. As crazy as the scenario is, he would have made it seem a little more believable because even in Tusk, I mean, as unrealistic as that movie sounds, he kind of makes you buy it with his performance and things like that. The girls here, I don't think that they did a particularly bad job, but it's and I have no problem these girls being the heroes of the movie. That's fine. That's great. Although I could see that like some people would not really care for these female characters in the movie because they'd be like, what bugs me about this movie is that the girls they just seem kind of like prissy, privileged, vapid, shallow teenage girls and all this other kind of stuff. And so I mean, but I will say though, the one thing that this movie would definitely have going for it though is say you have like a wife or a girlfriend or sister or somebody, female relative or friend or whoever that is not into horror movies, but you want to try to get them into horror movies. This would actually be a good movie to start them off with because you got female leads who end up being the heroes of the movie. Girls who that they could pretty much relate to, girls who love music and boys and their cell phones and clothes and all that other kind of stuff. Just typical teenage girls and stuff. And you know, girls that they can relate to and stuff like that. And then these girls, they're scared, but they they deal with their fear and they fight these monsters and everything else, and they end up saving the day. So I'd say, yeah, if you had like a female member, friend, or family member or somebody that you didn't know that you want to try to get them into horror movies or something, this would be something good to start them off with. I think it would be anyway, but yeah, I think I pretty much said about just about everything I've said about it. Like I said, this actually kind of hurts me to do this review because, like I said, I love Kevin Smith. I can't wait for the Jay and Silent Bob movie. I want to see this Christmas horror anthology that he's got coming. I think it's called Kilroy Was Here. Can't wait to see that. Moose Jaws. I'm still looking forward to that. So yeah, I mean, so Kevin Smith, I still love him. This may not be his best movie, but I don't absolutely hate it either. But yeah. So anyway, that's going to pretty much wrap it up. I think I've gone on long enough. If anybody took the time to watch all this, I thank you for doing it, and I appreciate you for doing it. I honestly hope you enjoyed the video. I'm sorry if I prattled on too long. If you did enjoy the video, please like and subscribe. I do reviews. I do shelf by shelves of my movie collection, do haul videos, all of the kinds of things. Got some ideas for upcoming, videos I think might be fun. So yeah, come on and check them out. Hopefully you'll enjoy yourself and you'll like what I post. So anyway, this is Sinema77, horror and cult film lover. Thank you one last time for watching this video and take care. Have a good night and I'll see you later. Bye-bye.